Hatep and Ma'at. That means I'm offering you truth. I am As Neferka, and I want to welcome you to today's Navigating Eternity workshop. If you've been here before, welcome back. If it's your first time here, welcome. I want to let you know that if you're here with us live, I know there was a time shift on the other parts of the world, and I realized that some people, it came to my attention that some people had the incorrect time. So if you're catching the replay or the raw play, as we like to say, welcome to. Please feel free to still reach out and connect. If you're here with us live, the benefit is you get to be in the comments, and I want to actually workshop with you today. So if you don't have a journal, a notebook, your planner, or anything like that present, a blank piece of paper, grab your phone or something that you can use to actually implement what we're going to go over today. All right. So blessings, Regine. It's great to have you here. So shout out to everybody else who's here with us live. Please feel free to go ahead and engage. And whenever it's time to get a little more interactive, please don't be shy. All right. So I will give a few disclaimers for today because I already noticed as I was getting on, the tech is acting a little funny money. So Tehuti, which is Mercury, is retrograde. So we always come in with that grace, knowing that there may be things happening unexpectedly as far as technology is concerned. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to use the new slides I wanted to use today. Welcome, Kai. Blessings. Okay. So I'm not going to be able to use the new slides. However, we're still going to go ahead and tap in. If the slides start going back and forth, I just gave you a disclaimer, right? So if you're here with us at this moment or you're watching the raw play, I want you to take a moment to just bring yourself into stillness and presence. I actually need to do that myself. I just came in from the beach, had a beautiful time, a beautiful flow, beautiful movement. Because as you guys are going to learn, we're going to always remind you that it's not a matter of time, it's a matter of movement. So many of us have a lot of healing to do in terms of our relationship to time. So that is what this medicine of navigating eternity is all about. So I want you to go ahead and just remember, everything's by invitation. So I'm inviting you to let your eyelids get heavy and for you to allow yourself to just come into that still darkness as you close your eyes and just take a few deep inhales and release through your nostrils. On your next inhale, I want you to fill that belly up like a balloon is filling in your belly. Hold that breath at the top for 3, 2, 1. Now drop your jaw and release through the mouth. We're going to do one more releasing breath. Hold on empty here. Now inhale in 3, 2, 1. Butterfly that rib cage open. Expand the belly. Sip in a little bit more air here at the top. Hold there for 3, 2, 1, and release through the mouth. Now, just take note of the sensations that you're feeling. Just come present in your body. How are you feeling? Allow yourself to start to lift yourself. Relax your shoulders. Really have that jed, your spine nice and straight and uplifted. Like you have a beautiful golden thread that's tied at your sit bone and pulling you up each vertebrae, up your neck, up your crown, up to the heavens, to Mamanut. Relax your shoulders. I'm going to play this tone. This frequency is tuning our heart just for a moment to just center us. Remember to breathe. Hopefully you were able to receive and hear some of that tone through this virtual space. I want to first and foremost offer gratitude, giving thanks and praises to the Great Spirit, great mystery, this beautiful divine expression of life, of everything that's in existence and non-existence. We give thanks for this opportunity to be here in the flesh. We give thanks for our force that has converged in this moment for us to be here. We give thanks for all of the beautiful challenges and opportunities for growth and strengthening that have brought us forward to this moment. We give thanks for the breath of life that connects us to all things. And as always, we give thanks for the protection and guidance that is provided to us in this beautiful sacred space. Ashe. All right. So I also see I have my sister, Arlene, in the house. She's in the back of the studio, but I'm going to bring her in after we get started. As I said, I have to use some older slides that I wasn't intending on using today. But if you are here with us live, please take a moment because I want to highlight a few people's intentions. What brought you here? And let me, before I even start that, Happy New Year! It is officially a new year, a new astrological year for navigating eternity, this beautiful energy management medicine that synchronizes us with natural cycles. We begin the new year on the first new moon after the spring equinox. The spring equinox was on the 21st of March, and yesterday, the 29th of March, for depending on where you are on the planet, was the new moon, which is actually a beautiful super moon and solar eclipse. So really giving way for new energy, new intentions. However, there's a slight little nuance because we have two energies, two planets that are retrograde. So while we feel this forward motion, you may sense that some of the things that you want to bring forward don't fully feel ready to emerge, which is fine. That's exactly why we learn this medicine, is to allow us to not swim against the current. When I was at the beach earlier, there was actually a current. So there's this cliff. It's about 40 feet. We usually dive in the cliff, and then you can actually swim towards the beach area from outside the rocks. But because the way the current pushes in, it's easier for you to swim in than it is for you to swim out. So we had a whole situation. One of the elders was with us. He had to climb out because it is literally exhausting to swim against the current. It's like you're swimming, you're putting all this energy and you're not moving anywhere. So that's what we want to heal. That's what we want to avoid. We want it to feel like you are floating and the current is taking you exactly where you need to go, because that's how everything on the planet, in the universe, the multiverse, wants to support us in realizing what is in our hearts to create. All right. So Happy New Year. What is your intention for being here? Don't be shy. I see Kai saying Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Kai. What brings you here? Why? What is it about navigating eternity that has drawn you in. I do want to hold that because that's also going to guide the energy. So if you are here, welcome to Lila. Blessings, sis. So glad to have you here. All right, all my beautiful sisters in the house. We got some, I know there got to be some brothers in the house. Don't be shy. All right, so without further ado, we're going to get started. I'm not going to speak too much about the backstory of navigating eternity today because I want us to do things a little differently. We're going to workshop. I want you to leave this workshop today with your compass for this moon cycle, at the very least, so that you know whether you choose to align with Tu'utima'a or you're in sync with our constellation, you still have this medicine, and now you know every new moon how you can, at the very least, connect with the rhythm and the pulse of Netter, of nature. All right. Grand afternoon. Okay, so that being said, so this picture you see here, so this is what I was talking about. It's gonna just keep flipping around. Told y'all this thing is acting up. All right, this was when Navigating Eternity was birthed. All right, but well, not birthed, but when the seed was sown for Navigating Eternity. This was a decade ago now, 10 years ago. Before Navigating Eternity was even born, it was gestating for 8 years. So from this point where you see this reflection of me, right? This is when I had first cut off all my hair. Me and my partner traveled to Cabo Verde here, where I'm currently at, right, in the sunny climes of Ma'at Mountain on the beautiful island of Fogo in Cabo Verde on the west coast of Africa. And when we first came back here, one-way ticket, just here for, we didn't know how long it would be, ended up being a year. And in that space, so much electrified me. It was nature that I always say really birth or sow the seed or awaken the seed, fertilize the seed of this medicine. Because from a little girl, I always used to play office and just want to organize things. Like, it's just something that's just been in my heart. And the beautiful thing about it is that I started designing what I was calling at the time the perfect planner. And I had no idea it was going to end up being this potent and powerful medicine, because really what Navigating Eternity is, depending on the stages that you move through, you'll really be able to grasp and see like the depth of what this really is. Fundamentally, when it comes to, like, as a revolutionary at heart, when it comes to revolution, there's no greater need for healing and medicine than the way that we orient ourselves to our very existence on this planet that has been colonized in a linear context, in the way that we move in life on a day-to-day basis, right? So it's so important for us to recognize that our relationship to time has been oriented through a Greco-Roman, which is a European time paradigm that is interpreting time in a linear fashion. And our ancient ancestors oriented, and all the indigenous traditions on the planet oriented us to nature through nature's divine design, which grows in spirals and is not linear, right? So that is what this is all about. So from that point on, I told you 8 years gestating, really aligning more closely with nature. I decided to actually move here and start farming. And every step of what has nurtured this medicine, beyond the research, because I did research all of the, top energy management or time management, the spiritual tools and things that were coming out, all the books, Atomic Habits, all the things, all the people doing all the things, and really finding a way to fuse that with our ancient wisdom, right? Because I'm also a high priestess of ancient African sacred science that comes from our ancestors that were in the Happy Valley, which we call today Kemet. Some people will know it better through the modern geography of Egypt, Sudan, right? So this Nile Valley is where our ancestors birthed an era and an epoch of civilization that still permeates every single aspect of science, mathematics, and all of the systems that we have built upon to this day. The architecture still stands there strong, right? And in 2020, or before 2020, so we call 2020 year zero. So this is just to give a little bit of orientation in terms of where we are in our time. So when we're talking about reclaiming time, we're talking about coming back to our cosmic cycles and our cosmic alignment. Because when we look at our Kemetic ancestors, right, we carved into stone these beautiful divine symbols and messages because we knew we would be here. But how? How could we have prophetically known that we would be in this moment? Because everything moves in cycles. And we studied nature to such a degree and the astronomy to such a degree that we recognized that these cycles would repeat themselves, right? And history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. I forget who said that, right? So it's not, sometimes we say history will repeat itself, but no, it never repeats itself. It does rhyme, because when things come back around, right, even as we revolve around Ra, around the sun, we never really come back to the same place, right? So that spiral is constantly moving. So it seems like the same place. That's why we say it rhymes. Okay. So we knew that we would come back to this degenerate cycle, right? To a dark age, right? As they put it, right? But when our ancestors developed and built all of these great monuments, we were in a golden age of an era, right? So in 2020, it was actually 2019, end of 2019, I just got a calling in my heart, could not explain it. I was just like, we have to go to Egypt. We need to get a flight to Egypt. I don't know how we're gonna make this happen. I told my partner at the time, and he was like, all right, we'll make it happen. I don't know how we're gonna make it happen, but so we ended up coming for almost a month. It was about 22 days or 28 days. I don't remember exactly. But it was such a beautiful experience, because immediately once we arrived, same thing that happened to me the first time I came to Fugu, I just had an awakening, just like a deepening, an expansion that I really cannot put into words. I immediately felt guided to where I needed to go and why I needed to get there before, because all I knew at the time was I need to get there before January 1st. That's all I knew. And lo and behold, that's when I knew. And I was guided to go into the Great Merkuti, right? What we call the pyramids of Giza. And in the Great Merkut or pyramid, I was guided to do a ritual. And it was really about opening the way for our time so that we would not recycle as of January 1st, 2020, when they tell us it's the new year and their time, that we would not recycle into another time paradigm based on this paradigm that we've been in, right? So these oppositional forces, right, they're still here to strengthen us as part of the cycle. And now the tipping point, we've reached the tipping point. So year zero marked us entering into our time. So once we've entered into our time, that means we're back in alignment, right? But there's a call for us to now embody that. And that's what this medicine is really for, is for us to embody this time paradigm. Since then, since birthing Navigating Eternity, which was 3 years ago now, 3 revolutions ago, right? I have gone on such a beautiful expansion. I mean, it's been so amazing. I've been living beyond my dreams. That's all I can really say right now. And that's why I feel actually passionate about sharing this with people, because please trust me and know that you can be living your dreams beyond your dreams. That's what I'm saying. And I mean, just like even the fact, like even when I was at the beach today, like it was just so amazing. I just laid in the black sand. It was so hot and nourishing and healthy. And I was just present with, wow, this is all I could ask for, right? And sometimes when we think about aligning with our dreams and what's in our heart, we are not aware that there are things that have to be shed that aren't ours, right? So there's an aspect of purification when it comes to healing our relationship with time. So part of that, the first way that I like to make sure that we orient ourselves before we get into any deeper of like implementing things, is recognizing that time is movement. It is not the way that we've been programmed to think on both sides of the paradigm, right? So whenever we're dealing with anything in wholeness and truth, there's a whole spectrum, right? So you have an extreme, right, which we could say on the far left, or an extreme on the far right, right? And on one side, you have, this density of, time is value, right? Where like our time is our money, our labor is being, based on time. We're really oriented to time as everything, right? Time is money, they say. And then on the other side, we have this other spectrum of like, like the new age, which is like, oh, time is an illusion, time's not real. And what I want to say to you is, in truth, everything is everything. So in truth, both of those things are relevant. However, when we stand in the center, the best way for us to orient it is to recognize, what is time really? And I want to invite you to replace every time, every movement, every moment that you feel to express time, try to shift it with movement, right? See how I just did moment? So you could orient yourself, instead of thinking about time from a linear context, thinking about it through movement. It's just a good exercise of the medicine in your day-to-day life through your own orientation and your perception. So we measure time according to our revolution around Ra, which is the sun. All right. So Ra is literally the root word in revolution. So in the Greek interpretation of the Medu Neter, or the hieroglyphs, right, our ancient African language from the land of Kemet, the word is Re. They do R-E. So when we see the word revolution, it is emphasis on the sun, right? And even when because most of us usually consider our movement and our flow, or our growth, based on, like I said, linear time, which most of us know about Charles Darwin and the evolutionary theory, right? So a lot of people, especially right now with the spiritual community, there's all this talk about evolution, evolution, evolution. I'm telling you, as an African person on this planet, it is primary if you want to heal your line, your bloodline, your lineage from the things that we have experienced, so that we could move forward and begin rising back into our next golden age. It is imperative that you put the solar principle back in its proper place, because we are solar powered people on a solar powered planet. And this sun is what is creating the abundance and the rejuvenation and the regeneration on this planet that we experience every day. So if you want to be on the winning side, you align with Ra, right? Because everything on this planet is based on our power source, which is the sun, right? So I say that because it's very important that you recognize that they remove the solar principle from the word revolution, and you get evolution, which is really a devolution, right? So I want you to consider, every time you would say evolution, to think revolution, which is what really the opposition don't want us to consider and think about and put primary. But it is time for us to revolve, and that's what's happening on the planet right now. So our solar system is a beautiful divine design of order, right? There's this order of all these energy spheres. Regardless if we perceive it in this particular way, these energies are affecting and impacting everything in our solar system. And beyond our solar system, there are many solar systems, right? In our galaxy, there are many galaxies, superclusters. There's so much, there's many universes, right? So at this point, we recognize the expansiveness of everything. But within that context, it's important to recognize that everything that's happening above us is also happening below us. So when we look at this pulse, what you see on your screen is the pulse of the equinox and solstices, right? So I told you we just entered the vernal equinox, which is the spring equinox. It's usually from March 20th or 21st. And then at that point where we have equal day and equal night, the daylight begins to lengthen. This is why it's important for us to orient ourselves here, because now we're orienting ourselves to the expansion, right? It's a cardinal point. It's one of the cardinal directions as we're looking at the screen, right? Those four corners. So the day is lengthening. And once the sun gets to its furthest point that it'll go, we reach the summer solstice, right? And at the summer solstice, right? And this depends on which part of the hemisphere, which hemisphere you're in. Because when the sun reaches its southern point or its northernmost point, for some of the planet, that marks the winter, and for other parts of the planet, it marks the summer. So we'll just base it on the summer solstice being June 20th to 22nd, the longest day, shortest night. And then at that point, the sun has to begin orienting itself back to equinox. So the days don't lengthen anymore, they shorten, and the nights lengthen. And then we get into the autumn equinox. The autumn equinox is when we again have equal day and equal nights, and then the night continues to lengthen until the sun gets to its furthest point, right? And depending on hemisphere, it's either the furthest north or the furthest south. And then we have the longest night and the shortest day. And at that point, it begins to orient itself back to center, and we have equal day and equal night. That is the pulse of the sun. So that is the primary way that you can consider organizing your life. Remember that navigating eternity is it's an energy management medicine. So it's not just about knowing this, it's about recognizing that you can be in alignment with this rhythm in the way that you organize your life. And as you surrender to that, you will be more supported energetically, which brings ease into your life. That's what we actually want. It doesn't have to be a struggle. It doesn't have to be hard. It can be easy. Trust me. Okay? So the medicine of navigating eternity is all about you being on your boat, the boat of Ra. So when I told y'all there was prophecies written in stone to this day that we wrote on stone, on papyrus, right? So this is on paper, of this journey that the boat of Ra goes through the Duat, the Tuat. That is the underworld, right? That is the realm of the unconscious or subconscious, the subterranean space. We consider that to be the dream state, right? The astral plane, the part of our existence that is in the dark that we do not see. But Ra, the sun, gives us the illusion of light. So we do get to see. That's what brings consciousness. This is about consciousness, okay? Our awareness and our ability to be present with our reality. So in the ancient prophecies, the boat of Ra is the solar bark that carries the soul from life cycle to life cycle, right? It is also what carries us through this dark and degenerate age that we're moving through right now, which is why it's so important for you to recognize that you are the boat of Ra. You are the vessel. You are the ship that is navigating eternity. And this medicine is to bring you consciousness in that process so that you can be in alignment with Neter, with nature, right? With the divine forces that are here for the transmutation and transformation that's taking place on this planet right now. This is a very special moment on this planet, right? Obviously, some of us may have, more consciousness of their past lives and different things like that. But that's also the beautiful thing about this medicine. It does allow you to bring order in your life so that you can retrieve your memories. You can retrieve your memories from this life and lives before and lives to come. I know that might sound a lot for some people, but you can take this where it's expansive. You can take this wherever you are, wherever you're ready to go. Okay. So I'm going to just take a sip of my water and begin to prepare to transition and bring our sister Arlene on. I want to shout out our brother Rob that's here. Excuse me. Wish I could join live, just tapping in. Glad to have you, Brother Rob. Shout out to the Utimat militia in the house. Shout out to my warriors, my family. Um, also shout out to Mama Deborah. I know that's Kai's mama. So welcome. Great to have you here, Mama. And then Sister Arlene says Aries or our moon is the first cardinal initiation sign, hence the new year, first new moon after the equinox. Ashe. Exactly, because the equinox actually is marked when the sun enters into our moon, which is the first constellation in the ecliptic that we orient ourselves to, which most people know as the zodiac. Now, the zodiac has the word zoo in it because, like, the animal orientation, but as you know, especially as we orient ourselves to the African origins of the zodiac, they're not all animals. So we can consider them to be constellations, star signs, there's all these different ways that we can look at it. So thank you for sharing that, sis. And our moon is symbolized by the ram, by the way, if anyone's not familiar with what Aries or our moon is. Remember, navigating eternity, you don't have to be an expert astrologer to do this. Primarily, it's going to first and foremost orient you, because you could even be a brilliant astrologer and not be in alignment with natural cycles. There are a lot of people who have a lot of knowledge and information about the sun, the moon, the stars, and it's just information, it's just knowledge, it's not embodied. This is not just about giving you information, which is why today you're going to make your compass. I'm not interested in just sharing information with you and knowledge and wisdom. I'm interested in making sure that you apply it and that it empowers you, because we need you in your power and in your proper place, because you have something to offer that we need for this transformation that's taking place. So that's why we're invested in you aligning. Thank you, Kai. Bless you too, sis. All right. So I didn't even drink my water. All right. So I also had a lot of when I jumped in from the cliff, I got a lot of excuse me, salt water in my nose. Cleared me out though. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring Sister Arlene in. Welcome, sis. How are you? Oh, your audio's not on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
How are you? I am doing great.
Yes, I just saw the comment. Got an organic nose drip. Yes,
No, straight from
because Lord
source.
knows I do not like that. I do not like saline solution.
Man.
All right. So, do you mind introducing yourself to our family here? And then maybe I'll do an introduction. I don't think I actually introduced myself either for anyone who's here for the first time.
You want to go first? You want to take the
Um,
lead?
no, I love
Oh, okay. All right. All righty. Hello, everyone. Peace to everyone in the chat. I had to figure out how to work the comments because I was like, am I the only one here? So I had to see that there was family here. I just had to work it out in the back end. But I am Arlene, the family alchemist, and I am a part of the Navigating Eternity, the Tahuti Mahat family. Yeah, I wasn't expected to come on and give an introduction. So
Okay,
yeah,
it's all
I'm,
good. It's
I'm,
all
I'm
good.
happy to be here. Thank you for sharing the space and allowing the space for me to come on and to be able to be in this process with you. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say that Sister Arlene is no longer a freshman as of this season, but Sister Arlene did do her first season. She just completed and graduated her first season. So we do Navigating Eternity on a seasonal basis, at least the way that we open it through the JED, and the JED is our accountability community. So the JED is a pillar. Let me see if I actually have an image of it that I can show on the screen. Um, Here it is. All right. So the JED, that's one of the symbols of the JED. Do I have a more realistic one? I don't know if I do. But what I will say is it is the symbol of, it's a column, right? It's the backbone of a star in our ancient mythology and cosmology, right? Which is the resurrected one, right? Where we get the stories of Jesus and, all these other resurrected principles that have come through many other traditions. It's a symbolic expression of a death and rebirth process. And Asar is the divine or the sacred masculine principle, the father principle. And that is our accountability, that is our discipline, that is our responsibility, right? When we think about all of the things that are upright, erect, masculine force, right? So the Jed is the backbone, right? Which we know is the gateway of the soul, connecting to the divine. And the Jed is also for us, we consider, because in the Navy, a fleet of ships, right? Remember, each of you is on your ship in your vessel navigating eternity. But when you join the Jed, you're joining a fleet. And in the Navy, a fleet of ships is called a column. So, what better way for us to align with than an ancient African principle of a column, which is the Jed? So, yes, it's about having a strong backbone, and this is our accountability community. So, we do have our accountability community every season. And what I was saying is Sister Arlene was in the last season. So she just graduated. And I think she's the perfect person to bring in and speak about like what the Navigating Eternity experience has been for her, what even brought her in. So I really wanted to make sure to give her the space for that. And we are going to go into a little bit of the medicine. If you want to go in deeper, of course, we're inviting you in. This is just the opening, right? This is the opening of the new year. We're actually going to begin in 2 strongs, right? So we say strongs instead of weeks. So 2 strongs. So on April 13th. So the door closes on April 12th for enrolling in Navigating Eternity. But you'll have up until then, there's going to be a lot of other things going on to make sure that if this is calling to you, if this is in your soul's path, that you enter in this window, in this moment. So um, I am the mother of Tehuti Ma'at. So I just said Tehuti Ma'at. She's a member of the Tehuti Ma'at militia. She's a part of the Navigating Eternity Jed. Um, Navigating Eternity is an initiation process for this beautiful instrument that was given to me to birth as a revolutionary way for us to align with the principles of Tehuti and Ma'at. So the principles of Tehuti and Ma'at are essentially wisdom and truth. So if you're here about embodying wisdom and truth, that's what it's about. All right, to put it in a Kari shell. All right, as simple as I can put it. And it's about revolution. So it's an instrument in the fact that it's designed and it has all of these different organizational models so that anyone who wants to embody these principles can play the song of their purpose or their purposes. Because many of us are multi-passionate people. That's what Navigating Eternity is designed for those overachievers, right? Those people who have all of these different things on their plate. Mama here or Papa here, business here, right? All of these different things, and then all of these visions and ways that we are here to contribute to the liberation and the resurrection of our people. So that's what it's about. So I'll just say I'm the mama of Tehuti Ma'at, proudly. And yeah. So Arlene, oh, Kai, can I add you in? Okay. All right. So we also have our sister Kai in the house. Welcome, Kai. Can
Hey,
you?
blessings, everyone. I'm gonna turn one off. I
Okay.
have
Yeah, echoing slightly.
okay.
So could you introduce yourself too?
Oh, of course. So, hi, Sister Arlene and Sister Neff. Yes, my name is Kai Sharif. I am a second. I guess a second. I'm not a freshman. I'm a sophomore now. And I was the newbie before Arlene, and now she's the newbie. But we graduated. We're excited. Yes, I. Who am I? I am an
She's like,
artist.
where do I start?
I know, an entrepreneur, filmmaker, writer, producer. Those are the things I am, but I am also just navigating eternity.
Yes, she's
Yeah,
very humble. Kai is also a very talented person we have in our constellation that we're proud to have.
gratitude.
Okay, so what I would love, so I didn't necessarily have an exact plan, but you guys are also going to be examples too as we're creating our compasses. Our I don't know if that would be compassi, but yes, we're each going to create our compass. But first, I wanted to give you guys a chance to maybe share with the audience like what brought you into navigating eternity and what your experience has been. Anything you feel like is stand out for your personal experience.
I think if I don't mind, I'll go in because I had something on my that popped up in my brain. I am a very I'll say multifaceted, multi-passionate person. And so I was in seeking a space where I can be whole and full and for things to be possible. And so because I have like this natural space of just being very vast in who I am and what I want to do in this collective and how I want to contribute to humanity, um I've just always felt like people would limited me, or not people, or the things limited me. It was just like, oh, you can only do this thing, or you can only do this thing, and I was like, no, but I'm all these things. And so, what I found very amazing is when I entered this space. I'll give you a really quick example. I have always wanted to create an educational app for years. I actually, been talking about it for over a decade. And so being in this space, I spoke about it one time and then within a week I already have the educational app available. And I'm like, what is this life? So that's an example of just like having a space where I can be expanded and supported in my expansion and my vastness. Learning these tools of navigating eternity can apply to all aspects of my life. I feel so full. For example, like my mind, body, soul, spirit, businesses, like all the places that I exist in are held and held strong in the space. So that's what it has been. Being with these other people has been incredible, because I've been able to get support from them and also contribute to them, and it's been very reciprocal in our exchanges. So that's what I'll say.
Yes, thank you. And there's an African proverb that I love, and it goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. But what's interesting is as we've been coming together, we're going fast.
Yes.
But that's because we're navigating eternity and the energy has just accelerated. Like
Yeah.
that's what we're going to experience this year. And honestly, this revolution that we just entered into is going to probably be one of the most transformational in the next like of the century, to be honest with you. And I'm
Yeah.
speaking on that astrologically with the consideration of what happened in year zero in 2020, right? With COVID and everything shut down and right. When I went and did that, that ritual, I had no idea what was gonna happen. And it literally created a reset for the planet. Or I'll say a reset for us, right? But it's interesting that you mentioned that example because yeah, being a part of the militia, the thing is about it is about accountability because you have to see yourself and not everyone's ready for that. But the
Right.
thing is for those who are, it's like you are aligned not only with like-minded but like-hearted people. Because remember, Tehuti is the mind and Ma'at is the heart. So
Mhm.
it's amazing. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
And what about you, Arlene?
So, like Kai and like Neff as well, definitely multi-purposeful, multi-passionate about a plethora of things. And right at the moment when I got the invitation to join, it's funny how spirit works because the first initial um, invitation that I got, I wasn't ready, so to speak. And I know that when I want to show up, I want to show up fully and whole. So, some time has passed. So when the opportunity came up, I said, all right, it was like double dutch. I'm going in, I'm about to jump in. And having this experience, right, and being in this space has definitely expanded me and opened me up to a sense of um, how Kai was saying, this construct has you believing and feeling that you can only do one thing and that is it. And I was at a precipice of where I felt like I was going crazy because I'm like, how am I going to do everything? I feel like time is running out. Oh my goodness. Like this anxiety was coming up over me. And I was like, where is this even coming from? So having to move through that and coming into Tahuti Ma'at, and Neff is like, we're navigating eternity. And I'm like, you're right. We are navigating eternity. Like, why am I rushing? But then that's the chaos that they create. That's how the system is structured and set up. So coming into, again, joining the JED and having a blueprint, right? Something to follow where it's not cookie cutter. It's not like everyone has the same, I don't want to say rules and regulations, but the same blueprint as far as how we're all going to navigate, but everyone's story is going to be uniquely catered and tailored to them. So again, having that Virgo rising, that having the
Analytical.
yes, analytical, over analyzing. And this was the perfect space to be able to
Yeah.
like reassess in a more organized way, and to be able to take that deep breath, especially coming in the winter season. You're fighting with yourself because it's time to hibernate, right? It's time to go within and do that internal work, but something is still pushing you to want to do when we should be being. So yeah,
Right.
navigating eternity, the Jed, Tahuti Ma'at, all of the medicine that is here, the community was like, just take a deep breath. That song is coming to your mind. She say, puff up your chest, take a deep breath. You're going to be okay. And that was the vibe. And it's like, I am going to be okay, right? I'm not the only one going through this, experiencing this, but you can relax. And that has been the experience so far. And I have knocked off some things that I thought that I was never going to be able to take care of, because I was able to calm down and, turn the anxiety down. So that has been
Yeah.
my experience.
Yeah.
Can I
Thank you
add
so much.
something?
Yeah.
Okay. So a couple things Sister Eileen just made me think of when she was sharing. It's like I personally was looking for a space to heal because I recognized that a lot of the reasons why I was had these I guess illusions of restrictions, it was because I had more healing to do. And I think that's the other part of this space is it really helps us navigate through our healing process to completion, so we can level to these other dimensions in a very holistic, authentic way. And I also think that the space allows us to just be who we are. And I think that's really important because as someone who, like me personally, I was looking for a space that was African centered because I don't see like who I am. Like I recognize, like, it's we're missing the soul, the spirit's missing from a lot of the things. And so this space is so dope because I feel so centered in my beingness of my ancient energy, that I can tap into the right aspects of myself that feel like me. Like I'm like, oh, this is me. Like I don't have to assimilate. I don't have to, you know, minimize myself for other people's comfort. I can really just embody my ancestors and know that I am them and they are me, and it's supported in that space. So yes, take
Yes.
up space. I get to take up space
Yeah.
unapologetically.
Yeah, and that's what we call in, is like come in with your fullness, because like it's gonna be sensed and felt. Like we're high level souls, so it's
Right.
like we see the things in the shadow too, and that's what why the accountability for some people is difficult, and you really have to be ready for it,
Right.
and be honest with yourself also if you're not, because navigate Tehuti Ma'at is a string instrument. Maybe the drums are for you, right? Like maybe you need a saxophone, right? Like So it is also important to recognize like this is about like, yeah, we ready to show up full in
Right.
everything that we got so that we can sharpen and tune our instrument, right?
Mhm.
Um, so without further ado, that's gonna like bring us into like what is Tehuti Ma'at, and I'm just gonna give it to us in I'll always say Akari shell, right? Because this is something that we always go into. It's so multidimensional, right? For some people, Tehuti, which is symbolized by the ibis or ibis bird, which you see on the screen, um, is most notably known as the scribe, because when you see the bird actually in the sand, at the beach, I actually got to see it last strong. It literally looks like it. I actually saw it in the rocks, interestingly, but it
Mhm.
looks like it's signing a signature, right? When it with its long beak. So Tehuti is the scribe, the record keeper, the mediator, right? Tehuti has so many different dimensions, but this is a force of nature. It's not a god, right? Like the way we've been oriented into the European interpretations of our ancestral knowledge, as if these are external deities. These are divine forces and principles that are here, that are indwelling within us. Shall we have and make the space to embody them, right? So that's why the healing piece is important. Tehuti is also knowledge, wisdom, intellect, information, analysis, all of the things that we associate with the mind, right? Another symbolism that you'll see in Kemet of Tehuti is the baboon, which is a very interesting one, right? Because this is the part of Tehuti that is about the discipline, because Tehuti is the timekeeper. There are actually artifacts from Kemet where there was you know, the way we have like a, what's the thing called with the sand,
Oh yeah.
hourglass? Yeah, the same way you would have an hourglass, they had an hourglass which was water based, and you pour the water in, and it has the baboon peeing out the water to mark the time. And it's so cool to me because the baboon is known for um urinating in a time like on point, like every hour on the hour, right? That's like a thing, right? Just the timing. And think about how connected our ancestors were. We were in that in that moment where we observe nature to that degree, right? And I mentioned that before because it's really important to recognize we had a 26,000 year calendar. You have to observe, right? But Africans have been traversing the planets for millions of years, right? In alignment and synchronizing with nature and watching and observing all of these creatures, their behaviors, and using them to symbolize different principles and forces. So this is the part of Tehuti that's like, you know, it's also about being on point. So navigating eternity is about being with the flow, but you don't lose sight of time itself. We're also working to be on time, because if you're navigating eternity properly, you're also going to be on time. But we also give grace with navigating eternity because we recognize that you're never really late. You're always exactly where you need to be. And that's what comes back to what Sister Arlene was saying. It's the anxiety and the angst of time. Like we have a brilliant ancestor who wrote the book Blueprint for Black Power, Dr. Amos Wilson. And I remember watching a lecture and he was talking about how the mind literally suppresses and represses under the pressure of time. And he used the example of, you know, like you're going to take a test and then you just forget everything because it's like the pressure of time and the context in which you have to retrieve that information. So it's not that you lost the information, but you lost the ability to retrieve it in that moment under the pressure of time. So it's very important that we recognize that when we're in eternity, time is in there. But when we're in time, it doesn't have the space for eternity, right? So we're holding both, all right? And that's because Tehuti is the sacred masculine in this complementary divine couple of Tehuti Ma'at, and Ma'at is the feminine. So Tehuti is thoughts and time. So the Greek word for Tehuti is actually thoth, which is where the root of the word thought comes from, right? So it's literally the mind and mental element of our existence. Now, this is a cosmic principle. Tehuti is actually universal law. It's like the things that have to be and are, right? Like measured. And mathematics, right? What you see on your screen, people usually attribute to Fibonacci, which is a European. However, this mathematics was already written in stone before Fibonacci ever walked the earth, right? Because this is the wisdom of Tehuti, and there have been many Tehutis who have incarnated, who have carried out this through architecture, through, right? We have our great ancestor Imhotep, who was actually deified. This was an African man who was a physician, an architect, a multi-disciplined. We talk about multi-discipline. We're talking about somebody who, think about being a doctor, a lawyer, uh, an architect, and all the things at the same time, right? That's the type of genius we have in our bloodline, in our spiritual bloodline. All right, and then we go into the principle of Ma'at, which is complementary, and Ma'at is the heart. Ma'at. So what you see on the left side are two depictions from the judgment scene, which the scales that you see on the screen are considered to be the scales of Ma'at, where the heart of the deceased or the querent is placed right after the soul, after the body transition or dies, the soul transitions, but the heart must be weighed, which means every deed that was done is accounted for, right? That's why you have Tehuti there. You could see on the top scene, you have Tehuti there, right? You see the priest with the mask of the ibis bird representing Tehuti, and he's taking record of the account of what is weighed, what is the judgment. Is the heart lighter than the feather of Ma'at? And the feather of Ma'at is an ostrich feather. That's why you have the ostrich on the screen as well. It's interesting to note that the ostrich is the largest bird on our planet, and it doesn't fly, right? I always think that that's very interesting because there's an aspect of Ma'at that's very grounded, right? So it's the heart, it's truth, it's justice, it's wholeness, it's integrity, honesty, morality, sobriety, propriety. Ma'at is also multi-dimensional, faceted. And this divine force and principle is also a cosmic principle, meaning it's not necessarily just terrestrial here. This is a cosmic principle that exists in the cosmic expression of existence. And she is the principle of order, universal law, Tehuti, and cosmic order, Ma'at. So we need the two together. In all of the African tradition. Oh, can you still hear me?
It's going in and out.
Hear me?
It was going in and out. Can you say something?
Uh-oh. Okay. Now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Working now?
Yes.
Okay.
We can hear you,
Can
but
you hear
your
me now?
video is a little is.
Aw.
Oh, we can hear you now.
You can't hear me?
A little bit.
All right. How about now?
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh. I wonder, can you hear me, Sister Arlene?
I can.
Okay, well, we can keep it going till our sis gets back.
Yeah.
Is there any questions from anyone in the who's been watching? Because I know that some people came at different times. I might ask Sister Neff to recap the beginning just to kind of orient us to where we are. I don't feel comfortable doing it. But
Why not, Kai?
huh?
I said, why not?
I don't know what to say. I'm better at answering questions.
I'm not sure if I. Are you able to see? She dropped off.
Hmm. Yes, I'm able to. Okay, is navigating attorney rooted in astrology or just an aspect of it? Good question, Mama Regine. There are astrological elements that help orient us. For example, we need to know what's happening with the planets to then, when we are planning our compass, which is something we're going to do today, knowing the energy of the planets in relation to our birth charts help us make decisions about what is the best things we can do with this energy for this season. So usually, hey sis, she's back.
I'm back.
So yeah, so there's an aspect of understanding that part, but so the answer is yes.
Okay, so you answered that question from
I
Regine?
did,
Okay, thank you for that.
of course.
Here's the interesting thing. You're gonna trip. Well, I'm you won't trip, you'll rise. You'll rise on this. So it was exactly the top of the hour, and I told Kai, and I don't know if you believed me when I told you this, Kai, but I've been having to pee every hour on the hour. I was like, yo, I'm really embodying Tehuti because like the internet went out, and I was like, let me go use the bathroom.
I love that.
So that was actually very funny. All right, so let
I
me go
was
ahead and
I
put the
was
slides back.
I
Hmm.
was asking I was going to ask you if you can, because some of our audience is just joining. Can you recap the beginning a little bit for us, just to kind of orient them to where we are right now? Just a quick, not like, going
Hmm.
backwards, but just like an overview.
Yes. Okay. So our
Thank you.
overview is Navigating Eternity is an energy management medicine that's designed to support you in transitioning back into synchronization with nature. So we went over the importance of recognizing that we have to be present in the moment that we're in, and the moment that we're in right now on the planet is a moment of healing and transformation, right? So we came here for this, especially if you feel called into this medicine and this instrument in particular. You are a high level soul that's here to accomplish and contribute to that transformation process. Now, that's being present with the moment that we're in right now, right? The era.
Mhm.
And the rhythm of nature is based on this planet, in this realm, is based on our relationship to the sun, which is the center of our solar system. So we oriented ourselves to that, to the concept of revolution instead of evolution. So we really were talking about shifting from that Greco-Roman Eurocentric time paradigm and returning back to a cosmic interpretation which we had ancestrally. So we're really returning back, but better than ever, right? Because we're learning from everything that we experienced, that our ancestors experienced. That's why we're healing so much, and we got all this stuff to uproot and to really work through, because that's all meant to inform this next golden age that we're preparing to enter into. So that is that. So the medicine of navigating terrain is, how do you manage your life and organize your life in cycles, in line with the cycles of nature. So we were talking about the principles of Tehuti and Ma'at because those orient you on your map, right? Because we're talking about cosmic consciousness, and navigating your eternity means your energy is beyond this body, right? So it's like having that cosmic expansive overview. So like we said, Tehuti was thought and time. Ma'at is centering and symmetry, right? It's the whole thing. So there's always going to be the polarity, the two sides, and Ma'at synthesizes both, brings them together. It's the whole spectrum, which is what truth is in that context. And Ma'at is also a moral inventory that you do on yourself, right? You weigh your heart. You feel every day if your heart is heavy, right? You know when you're out of integrity. So, as above, so below. So, if Tehuti Ma'at reigns cosmically, it also reigns internally if we choose, right? Um, so, we want you to actively participate in creating your reality. That's what the medicine of navigating eternity is. So, we're going to go into, so this is moving from reactionary to responsible, right? You're not just going to be reacting to things that are happening, you're going to be responding to them. consciously and guiding your life in alignment with what you sense and feel, right? So there's an intuitive aspect that's not all mental and analytical, right? It's not just about astrology, it's also about intuition, right? Because what's happening above us is happening within us as well. So there's a lot of orienting inward into the inner body. The direction in takes us in all directions. And that's all we're constantly reminding you of, because there's so much constantly pulling you out of yourself that in itself is important and necessary. So the medicine of navigating eternity, if I had to boil it down to one thing, is about being present, right? But there's a method to being present that we provide. But if you there are certain cycles where you can't do a compass or a map or tap into any of those systems and things. You just got to be present. You have to be in surrender, because that might be the energy of that cycle, right? So it's not about just the tools, it's about being present fundamentally. So here we go. So this is the part where I want you to actually be able to become active in creating your compass. So that's gonna be the part of the medicine that you're gonna be taught today, and I want you to actually apply it for this moon cycle. So yesterday started the new moon. So for the next 28, 29 days, up until the end of April, we are in a new moon cycle, and the compass is something that we align every moon cycle. So whenever I say the medicine, I'm talking about this system of navigating eternity. All right. So we look to Neter. Neter is nature, right? Neter is the divine. It's the great mystery of existence and things we don't even perceive to exist, right? That creative force and destructive force, right? In some cases, it has a rhythm and a pulse. So we look to the sun, and then we have the moon as a microcosm of what we had described when we went over the solstices, when we had the planet and we were showing the solstices and the equinoxes. The moon cycle goes through a similar process, right? When we have a new moon, and then the moon waxes into a full moon, and then it wanes back down into a new moon, right? So you sometimes have that quarter moon, just like we had talked about equal day and equal night during the equinox periods. So, okay, how do you actually use that to organize your life? One of the things, so navigating eternity does have some, there's aspects of Set, which is the energy of Saturn. Set is gravity. Set is the ego. Set is the time, the one that creates barriers and limits, right? So that energy and that principle is necessary in the universe as well. So there's an aspect of also creating some boundaries and limitations. There's also aspects in the medicine where you personalize it to your own rhythm, right? There's certain things where it's fixed, just like in nature, right? In the constellations, some of the signs are fixed. In each modality, you have a fixed sign. So you have cardinal. These are 3 modalities. So we're working on the extension of navigating eternity, which is a mini course on the Kemetic zodiac, which will go into what I'm sharing right now. But I'll just say this for anyone who doesn't know. You have 3 modalities for each of the elements. So in the star signs, the wheel of the star signs, you have, which mark the pulse every moon cycle, right? Or we look at it as months, right? But you have 12, and there's a 13th sign. Not getting into that right now. So the 12 signs that people mainly know are, when someone asks you, what's your sign? People will say like, oh, I'm Gemini, which is Tehuti, right? Because the sun was in Gemini when I was born. Okay. So that's one element. But each of those signs, there's 4 elements. So you have earth signs, air signs, water signs, and fire signs. And then within each of those 4, you have mutable signs, cardinal signs, and fixed signs. So there's always necessity for fixed energies. So it's important to recognize that there's some people who their energy is more in tune with fixed things, right? And some people's energy is more attuned to immutable, right? So they're designed. This is why what's important about navigating eternity, you're going along with your divine design, not what works for everyone else, not what everyone else is telling you, right? And then you have your human design, right, which is another system beyond the astrology that you could know about, like what's your energy type. All of these are elements and things that you take into consideration as your own unique energy signature as you're planning and organizing your life. We start with the natural, like collective energy field because everyone is experiencing moon cycles and sun cycles, right? But you can then personalize it for yourself. So on the new moon, the energy is attuned for initiations, for beginnings, for starting things. So this is a great time to start your compass, right? Which is going to guide you throughout the rest of this moon cycle. Usually because the new moon, and obviously you're always in a continuum. Nothing, every ending is a beginning. Something else is happening now, right? So you also have the information from the cycle that you just closed out as you begin a new moon. So when you're initiating and you're having those beginnings, they're informed by what the previous cycle was. The moon as it's waxing, meaning that the illumination in the sky or the reflection of the sun begins to widen up until you get to like that quarter point, right? And then it continues until you have a full moon. That is an energy of expansion. And it's a great time for expressing, right? It's things coming out. It's an outward energy. So, for example, in farming, when the moon is waxing, that's when we're uprooting things, right? That's when we're pruning things, right? Shedding, we're taking things out, we're harvesting, right? And then the best time is the climax, right? At the full moon is peak illumination. That is where the energy is the most radiant. You get the most clarity during that point because whatever the theme is of that moon cycle, it's going to be most clear and radiant, right? Most illuminated for you during that full moon. And then the waning moon is when the energy then begins to wane back into a new moon cycle. So it contracts back inward. So you're absorbing, it's a more meditative energy, right? So consider that as you organize your life. There are certain things that obviously, if depending on your circumstances, that you may not be able to adjust that are on your schedule, but for the things that you get to choose, and especially for your personal passions, right? You can consider your schedule based on this flow. So from right now, so you can consider it as four slices of a pie, which is great because if you look at it based on today is Sunday, right? Broad day. And then for the next 7 days, that's the new moon waxing. So you consider that first strong new moon energy. Then the second strong, I want you to consider that waxing moon energy because by the time you get to the second strong, right, 14 days into this moon cycle, it's going to be the full moon. And then from there, so you're halfway through the cycle, from that full moon, which I believe is going to be on the 12th of April, you're then going to have the waning energy. So from that full moon energy for that next strong, so the third strong, the third week is the third strong, right? So remember, right now we're about to enter the 1st of April is on Tuesday, right? So that second strong of April is waxing. The third strong of April is the full moon energy. And then the fourth strong of April is that waning moon energy. So consider that as a rhythm to be in alignment. I'm going to put that on there as well. Sorry to cut off your face, Kai. So I'm going to just change to the next slide. So another thing that's really important when navigating eternity is to make sure that you're making space to rest. Okay? It's very important as you're planning out your moon cycle and your compass that you consider what you personally need. So we're going to go into the elements of it. So there's other aspects of the medicine that we're not going to cover deeply today, but if you choose to go through Navigating Eternity, right, we distribute the medicine in one form as a online course, which you could always do self-paced, but we would like to invite some people in, right? Well, so if you're interested, you could do book a clarity call, and we'll make sure it's a good fit for you, and you can be part of the accountability community, right? And then we'll go into, and we'll be making sure that we're integrating, and you get to come in every other strong for our JED sessions, and that's when we do group coaching. So we'll go into the map there. But the map is essentially everything I just shared about Tehuti Ma'at. That's the essence of your map. Your map is about the forces of nature, right? And then for you personally, you get to see whatever is part of your purpose and your own mission in this life is your map. You could create that as a vision board, mind maps, life maps. There's all these different ways that we encourage you to create your map. And it's a living thing, right? You're designing what legacy you're going to be leading in this life, right? As you're navigating eternity. So we're recognizing there's time for everything, but you can't do everything right now. But like Sister Arlene said, like the moment you could just take a deep breath and relax, you could recognize that you can do it, right? It's just a matter of when is the best moment to do it. All right. And then at each top of each season, you have an itinerary that you create, right? So because we started a new year, we do a revolutionary plan, right? Which is your revolution plan is for the whole year. Then for each season, which has 3 moon cycles in it, you do your seasonal itinerary. After you do your seasonal itinerary, that's like kind of an overview. So right now we're working on our itinerary for the spring, which is April, May, and June. Today, we're going to focus on you creating your June compass. Excuse me, I said June. April compass, because that's the cycle we're entering into. I'm going into June because that's when my solar return is. All right. So as I said, the first thing when you start your compass is you're completing a cycle. So you want to review. Anytime we go into the creation mode in Navigating Eternity, the first thing that we do is the review. And remember, Ra is the sun. So we're having an illuminated view of the cycle we just closed out. So if we started a new year, before you do your revolution plan, you do your revolution review of the last revolution, the last year. Before you do your itinerary for the spring, you do your review of the winter, right? Before you do your compass for April, you do your review of March. So that's what we're going to do right now. So this is your initial flow always, and you're going to reflect on the previous cycle. All right. So I want you to reflect back on March, this cycle that we just completed on the 29th of March, which was yesterday. So I want you to go ahead and review that. And I want you to review it in the context of our medicine, which has 2 elements of your review. You have your glows and your grows. So your glows are the things that you want to celebrate that you've accomplished, right? Glows. Your grows are the things that you probably would complain about and be hard on yourself about, but they're really lessons that you have to learn. So anything that you see that you would be critical about, anything you didn't do, or anything that you feel like you need to grow in is your grows. They're opportunities for growth. So you identify them as intentions, right? So how will you learn the lessons in order to grow? So since I have Arlene and Kai here, I would love for us to exercise. And as you were viewing, have your planner or your journal, you're going to be writing your review for March. And I'm actually going to show on the screen really quickly an example of my last compass. So you're reviewing from February 28th, which was when we had the new moon in Het Me Hit, which was Pisces new moon, up until the Amun or Aries new moon that we had yesterday on March 29th. All right. So in the planner, which is coming soon, you'll have side by side with your compass, you'll have your review, right? So one of the things that's helpful that I want to add in here is knowing your roles. So when you go through the course for Navigating Eternity, we teach in depth about your roles. And when we do the coaching, we personalize that based on, whatever personal questions you have. So if you're here right now, I want you to identify 6 roles max that you have in your life. And I want to also allow Kai and Arlene to speak on this a little bit, especially as coming into and applying the medicine for yourselves. Is there any wisdom that you can offer people as they're reviewing what their roles are in their life? Oh, I
I
think
am
you're on mute.
unmuted. Yeah, so for me, I can just share what I did with my roles, and maybe that would be helpful. I looked at things based on like my relationship to the things that I'm responsible for. So, one of my roles is mother. That's one of my roles. The other one is a business owner and business mentor. And so there's certain responsibilities in motherhood that I have to, make sure I have goals for, that I'm responsible for. And the same with my business clients, and even for my own business, of what I need to be accountable for to be successful as an entrepreneur. The other examples are artist, creative, and a writer, director, and provider. So there's certain responsibilities. So that's the best way I can give an example of
Mm-hmm.
coming up with the roles for the compass. Mhm.
Yeah. And if you're here with us live, please share. Share, and that way we can also support you with that process. Another way that I like to encourage people as they're creating their roles for the first time is you can be creative about your role and know that the roles can, like, the name of the role can change even if it's the same role. Like, I like to give examples sometimes. Like, for example, one of my roles right now says mother, and it's speaking to my role as the mother of Tehuti Ma'at. That role has always been kind of the same responsibilities as Kai said, but there's been times where I've titled that role revolutionary, or I've titled that role warrior, right? So it depends on like how you want to show up in that role. Right now, I want to show up as mother because I want to nurture the instrument more. So it has shifted my orientation to my responsibility into Hutimaat. Is not right now warrior mode, it's mother mode, right? So that's another example that I can give. What about you, Arlene? Anything you want to offer? Because I know you guys already have your roles. For people who are following along right now, write down your roles and we'll move into the next step after.
What I would say when it comes to identifying your roles, make sure that the roles that you are taking on are spaces that you really want to occupy, spaces that you have the capacity to occupy. So, when it comes to when I did my roles, I was spreading myself thin. So once it came to do my roles, I had to be intentional with, no, that is not my, endeavor. That is not my situation. So my roles were, I may have only had I can't find the paper, but I may have only had 4 rows, right? And I was a little bit of anxiety wanted to creep in because I didn't complete the listed of amount of rows, but it was in the season of not putting too much on your plate. So being transparent with where you are and what it is that you can handle, because we will have that meet the expectation of or not meet the expectation of feeling like you didn't complete certain things, but making sure you have enough space to complete what it is you really desire. So, whether it's work or relationships or whatever, like make sure your roles are the space that you have, to be able to navigate.
Yeah,
It's
really great.
interesting. That was so good because
Hmm.
I did the opposite. Neff got on me around it because in my one role, I had multiple names. So the one that says mother, I didn't say what it says. It says mother, daughter, friend, wife. Like, I'm like, these are all of my one role, many names. And so I did the exact opposite. And I'm learning how to, and what Neff said was pretty much what you said, Sister Arlene, is just like, what is the embodiment for this season? Like, where can you focus on from that role? I understand you're all of these things, but where are you going to, orient yourself for this season? So that was something I had to embrace.
Yeah, and there's two things I want to say on that note, because the
Yeah.
reason why I start here is because most people usually have roles that are um we're looking at our responsibilities, but it's like it's more like oriented externally, right? Like
Right.
outside of us, like how we're showing up in the world. And it's important to be clear on what those things are, because at the center of your compass is what we call your bow or your bow. Your bow is the front of the ship, right? That's what that part of the ship is called, the bow. Why is that the front of your ship? Because it's your self role, it's your self development role. So we put that in the center of the compass. So that's what I have here in mine at the center here, right? And then I have my 6 other roles. You don't have to have 6. Some people might have 5, 4, right? The less roles you have, the greater, right? Ultimately, it's important to recognize it's all one thing, right? Because this is a part of like you integrating and becoming whole. But the organizing of the parts is important, right? We're one whole body, but what would our body be if our cells didn't organize into organs that could function and do specific things, right? So remember to keep it in context of like holistic, right? This is all you. But at the center of you is your own responsibility to yourself. And we have that in different dimensions of the self that you explore. So that's your mental, emotional, spiritual, cultural, um, relational, financial, right? Like all of these different aspects of yourself that you evaluate. So we're still talking about the review right now, but the reason why I wanted to share those things is because as you're reviewing, now look at March based on those roles. That's also why I like to color code, because navigating eternity is not just a energy management or time management system. It's also an accountability system. So what happens is, this was the other thing I wanted to say when Sister Arlene was speaking, is what happens is we we have to, I lost my train of thought, so I'm gonna have to like retrieve it. Essentially, it's important that we have our self development at the center so that we can account for how we're prioritizing or not prioritizing ourselves, right? But you get to do the same with everything else so that you can create realistic benchmarks for yourself, not benchmarks that are unrealistic based on programming that you have about how productive you should be, right? Because
Right.
that's what we're healing, is that idea of productivity. You're not a product. You are a whole living being that is has a soul that is trying to express itself through your body. And in order for that to be honored, you have to be on your own pulse and your own rhythm. So when you start, you don't necessarily have that to look back on, but I could look back on all my other compasses. I could look back on all my other revolution plans, and now I account for myself. So now I'm creating more realistic benchmarks for myself. So I don't feel, oh, I didn't do this or I didn't do that. Initially, in the beginning of taking the medicine, you're going to feel that way because usually you're going to be trying to do more than you really should be doing, right? But you're always doing exactly what you should be doing, because if that's what you choose, then that means there's an emotional experience that you have to have from that overwhelm or disappointment or whatever emotions are queued up for you, so that you can shift and refine that, right? But the goal that we have is to support you in that. Okay. So that being said, I want you to think about reviewing how you've been personally, right? That's your bow, spiritually, physically, relationally, emotionally, mentally, financially, culturally, over March. What are some of your goals, things you can celebrate in those different areas, and grows? What are the different areas in the other roles that you have, right? As a mother, as a brother, right? As whatever the roles are that you have, that you've listed, what are some milestones that you accomplished? What are some things you want to do better, right? So think about those things. And if you are here with us live, let us know if you want some support with that, or if you have any questions as you're doing this. So it has review, and at the bottom it says calibrate your compass, because remember, as you create your compass, it's based on this review of March. So even if you're not able to fully complete that in this moment right now, now you know when we get off this live, you can go and do a thorough review. Sometimes I like to encourage people to go through your phone, look at your pictures. It can spark memories and remind you of certain things. You could look at your calendar, right? Those are all ways that you could jolt your memory about what happened this moon cycle. And the more you take the medicine, the more present you can be, you'll find it easier to retrieve those things, because it also is an expression sometimes of us not being present in the moment, to be able to remember. It's like, damn, what did I do in March?
Mhm.
Right? Because were
Right.
you fully present in March? Right? So there may be moments that you weren't fully present in. So it does also support you with that, right? So you can begin to cherish those moments as you experience them. So that is guiding the compass. But let me actually ask Arlene and Kai, is there any wisdom that you guys want to offer for the review? I'm working on mine also.
I just put it in the chat, but what helps me, because sometimes I do that, what you just said, I'm like, well, what the heck happened in March? Um, so I just, the way I start my reflection is like, where was my spirit? Where was my spiritual relationship? Where were my spiritual rituals and actions? And how did I feel? What was my emotions? You know what I mean? What were some of the things that came up for me? And that helps me kind of draw out what I need to review. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a great way to look at it.
And then I
Anything you
pull
want
out the
to?
happy moments, the glows. Like, what am I appreciative of? What am I grateful for? What did I accomplish? What can I pat myself on the back around? And then what are the opportunities that I could improve for next season or next moon cycle. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
and starting with the glows is important, because one of the things we teach in Navigating Eternity is gratitude is the fuel for
that's
your ship. Okay, so start with your glows. And people underestimate at times like the importance of doing this. Please don't. Like, the system works because you got to do the things. Like, each aspect matters. Your
right.
glows are so important. You'll be surprised at the things that we just don't celebrate. When you start celebrating every win that you might measure as a small win, that gratitude is energetically fueling you, right?
Right.
So that you could be grateful. Gratitude also allows us to be present, because when you're not grateful, it's like you want it to be something else that it was not, or that's not present with you. So now you're moving out of the present moment. The gratitude brings you in humility, right? The presence with what the reality is of what you have, so you could recognize that you have everything that you need. And the things that you're looking for outside of yourself are informing you of where you feel voids, where you're not willing to go, or where maybe some other energy has occupied space, right? So that goes into the deeper levels of like where the personal coaching can support, because then you can identify what it is that you need to work through. So I think that piece is important, and I want us to go ahead and look.
And, and real
Yeah,
quick, the growth is it's important. This is what you helped me with, Neff, was like I use that time to be self-critical and kind of all of a sudden like be harder on myself. Like, oh, this is what I need to improve. And one thing that in our one-on-one coaching you do often is like remind me the growth is not to like be bad on yourself. It's like the way I forget what example you gave, but maybe you know which example you gave, where it's just like instead of saying this, Kai, why don't you try saying it like this when you're describing your growth? Do you remember what you could an
yeah.
example?
I don't remember what the example was that I used that day. But we can give an example right now of just
Okay.
like how you can, you know what? I might look at that same exact example because I think I wrote
It
it
was
down
good. It was
because it
good.
was
But it,
good. I don't know why I can't remember. But
but I
what
guess
I
I can, while you're looking, I can just say like it can be sometimes we'll be like, oh, I didn't stay on my food program, or I didn't work out as much as I did, and I need to improve in that. And then an example would be, I love that I'm able to that I forget you're better at it. I can't think of what to say, but it'll be a different way of saying the same thing, but it's more
okay,
aspiring
I
versus go
found the
ahead.
example.
Okay, got
So
it.
the example is you might be critical of yourself and be like, I was lazy in March. I felt like I was stagnant, I was lazy. And you might want to write down for your growth, stop being lazy, right? However, the review is meant to be affirmative. Remember, it's a raw view. It's with the sun. The sun is warm, right? You just did that's a cold view, right? So a raw view is looking at it like I'm going to stimulate my core in the rising via ab workouts. So my solar plexus is strong and allows me to do what I need to do. That's that's an expert
That's
expert
so
growth
good. That's how we
because you see how measurable that is.
yes.
You see how
Yeah.
prescriptive that is.
Yeah.
That's how good I want you to get. But all you have to do is be present with whatever your grow is. You start with that. You start with the honesty of what's in the shadow or what's the density of it, which is, ooh, I was I was lazy. I was lazy. And yeah, maybe the energy wasn't in support of forward motion, retrogrades, right? You can give yourself grace, and you can still recognize, well, I want to be more active. So what's going to make me feel more active, right? That's why I gave that example of the ab workouts. That's just because like that's part of the spiritual science, the technology of our body is okay, well, my solar plexus gives me my willpower. So let me stimulate it through the muscles in my core, right? So that's a tip for everybody. If you, especially this season right now, like Arlene has been lifting. It's Amun season. Amun is symbolized by the ram. It's the masculine. It's the spark of fire. It's a cardinal fire. So it's what gets the fire going. So anything you're doing with your core, with the solar plexus, great for this energy because everything's about to stimulate this year. We have major energy shifting into fire and air. You know what happens when fire gets air? More fire, right? So it's going to be a very active, very accelerated energy this year, which is why having this medicine really helps you because you could easily get pushed on someone else's wave, right? And the next thing you know, you're not even on your ship, you're floating on a plank or you're drowning in the ocean, right? So that's what we don't want. Okay. So let's go into the compass now. So we talked about the bow. What's a compass for, right? Think about it. One of the things Kai and I talked about when we had our one-on-one coaching was what happens with the compass
Mhm.
when you move. the compass moves, right? So that's how I want you to think about the compass. That's why you also calibrate the compass. Sometimes you might create a compass and the energy shifts, right? And you got to move with it, or it's moving with you. So you can calibrate, you can recalibrate your compass throughout the cycle. But the compass is always something you can look back at. So by the time we're in that waxing moon stage, you can look back on your compass and the intentions you put on there and let that guide you, like, okay, you know what? I said I was going to read that and I didn't. And I know that that's key for me right now in this particular role in my life. So I need to read that. You know, it could even be like a mother role, for example, and maybe you wanted to read something, a book that was going to inform how you were going to cook and nourish your children, right? Just as an example, right? So then you could look back on that and see, like, okay, maybe let me schedule that for the waning moon when it's a more internal energy, so that I could make more space to be with myself and read the book, right? Just an example. So it makes sure that you're going in the right direction. And the right direction is the direction that you are guiding as you're being conscious of all of these different elements that we're talking about. It's being conscious of the lunar cycles, it's being conscious of the sun cycle, it's being conscious of whatever other energy dynamics you're aware of, right? Your own nature, especially for those of us with wombs, like we also have our infradian rhythm. So that's the Tiet, which is a whole nother story, but it's the complement of the Jed. While the Jed is the backbone of Asar, the Tiet is the belt buckle of Ast, and it represents the sacred feminine principle and feminine energy. And the maiden, the one who takes care of herself first, right? Because the maiden is before the children, or in the Greek interpretation, it's the virgin, Virgo, right? No children means I'm prioritizing myself, right? So we all have an aspect of that energy, whether you're a man, a male, right? You still have an aspect of Ast or Virgo in you, right? In your energy, which is the part of you that has to nourish yourself, serve yourself so that you can serve others from your overflow. So that's why your bow is so important. It's internal. It's your knowledge of self. So I encourage people to write a love letter to themselves as one of the first things they do in navigating eternity, because it helps you to really center your bow. You do your love letter to yourself when you're in a really great place with yourself, right? Like every time I read my love letter to myself, I cry. I just cry. Like it just brings that out of me, because like it's just such a powerful reminder, and it's true. It's like you have to be in that state of like really honoring yourself in when you're writing your love letter. So side note, now you've identified your roles hopefully by now. So your compass, now that you're looking ahead for April, you are going to set your intentions. Set is gravity. Set brings it down. Set brings it to the ego, right? We need the ego to make sure that we actively honor the fact that, yes, I'm in this body, right? And this body needs things. So we honor and respect that principle and we set our intentions, right? So you're going to create your systems. So a quote that I love to use in Navigating Eternity is actually from Atomic Habits, where they say, rise to we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems, right? So you put the systems in place for your intention. But first, you start just like with the grow, you start with whatever the gravity of it is. What is the intention that you want to have in that role? So I'll give an example from my March. This is why it's great when you're doing Navigating Eternity, because then you could look back on your compass for last season and it actually helps you with your grows. So I'll usually go back and I'll circle all the things on my compass that I didn't accomplish. And I'll deeply, honestly reflect on why I didn't accomplish it. Was it a matter of me? Is there something that I needed, that I could have adjusted, that could have impacted my ability to complete it? Was it something that I was being overly ambitious around? Was the energy even in support of me doing that thing? It just helps me ground myself. So one of the things that I put is in my farmer role, I had coordinate Tehuti Ma'at Garden spring launch, which I did do. Not to the extent that I wanted to. So I'll probably just like in part of my process, I'll be like, okay, well, this is because I'm also overly critical of myself as well. What I would have wanted to do is actually have scheduled at least an hour to fully have sat with the spring launch and done better communication with the team that's on the ground in Brooklyn to give them more guidance and support for starting the spring cleaning. I would have, made it a priority to get on Instagram and maybe share with people so that they could show up sooner. I did post it in the stories, but you get what I'm saying? Like, you are looking at the thing, but you're evaluating. And then I had transplant and sow seeds in Fogu Farm and connect with my cow. So I did not transplant and sow seeds before I traveled. So I actually just got back from my travels. I've been island hopping, and I didn't transplant the plants that I wanted to transplant or sow new seeds. So I circled that. And now, as I'm doing my compass, I'm starting with that as my intention in my farmer role for this season. But based on my review, why didn't I prioritize that? Because I feel like I was doing a lot of work online, and I feel like I wasn't rising early enough. So, like, I need to rise while it is still dark. And the moment Ra starts to peak up, I'm there just like the baboon is, because every time the sun comes up, the baboons be out there praising with their hands up when the sun rises. Okay, so that's another little comedic science tip in terms of why we associated the baboon with Tehuti, right? So the baboon respects the sun's cycles, and that's our in circadian rhythm. So I talked about how the female has the infradian rhythm based on her menstrual cycle, but all of us, male and female, have our circadian rhythm, which is based on what? The solar cycle. So when Ra rises, if we're rising with it, our body chemistry will literally adjust and start producing the chemicals that it needs to have a healthy flow. Likewise, when Ra goes to rest in the west, right? So when the sun is setting and your body and you're outside and you get to see, your body can adjust its lighting. Because remember, our central nervous system, our eyes are the only part of our central nervous system that's external. And it processes light. And light is information. We are light. So it is imperative. That's why everything in Navigating Eternity is about us aligning with the cycles, the solar cycles. So recognize that. It's important in general. So I'm speaking about me personally. So those are some of the adjustments I'm going to make. So now when I put my intentions in, I'm not just going to say transplant and sow seeds in the Fogu farm. I'm going to, be more specific and more encouraging with myself. One of the things I encourage you to do when you're doing your helm, which is your strongly plan. So every 6 days, you do your plan. So you always have at least one rest day. Shout out to my sister Delilah. I don't know if she's still here, but when she told me she had 2 or 3 rest days, I was like, you a real G. Like, you a real goddess for that one, because I be struggling to make sure I maintain my one rest day at least. Because sometimes we want to fit things in on our rest day and we don't legitimately allow it to be a restful, relaxing day. So that's important. So when you do your helm, you're planning 6 days, not 7. And when you're doing that, you are putting in your intention. So I always say, make it something you want to do. Don't just say work out. Build my stamina, strengthen my core, tighten my booty. Whatever the thing is that makes you want to do the thing you're going to do, make it exciting, make it sound good. So for me, I'm going to actually put what are the delicious foods that I want to start so that I can have those plants when I come back to harvest and eat them, right? So I'll actually list those things out. So I'm definitely going to put kale, because I've been missing kale. Kale is not something that's indigenous here that we have, so I have to sow it if I want it. I definitely want lettuce, right? So I'll just start thinking about what are the things that I want to make sure that I have, so I don't have to go to the market or go to someone else's farm to get it, because I like to eat the food that I grow on my land, that I nourished and watered. So that's one of the things that is a tip for you as you're doing your compass. Make your intentions creative and fun and informed based on your review. That's why you're doing your review. All right. And as you're calibrating your compass, I want you to ask yourself, as you check in with your compass, it's great if you could do it on a daily basis, right? Because one of the things with navigating eternity that I think is important is make it part of your daily flow, is to check in with yourself, check in with your map, right? If that's a vision board, go look at that vision board and meditate on it. If that's looking at your itinerary and remembering like where you're going, what are your destinations for this season to keep you inspired and focused, do that daily if you can, right? But each day it's great if you could check in to make sure that you are, in alignment with what's on your helm. So we're not getting into the helm. That's if you go ahead and join Navigating Eternity, we get into that. Right now we're just doing the compass. But your daily check-in with your Navigating Eternity, or as you're navigating eternity, is just you sitting with your plan, right? And honoring that, or just meditating and feeling into the energy so that you can be present, right? Maybe it's not sitting with your planner. Maybe it's just, I need to just sit still and feel what I'm feeling, what's coming up for me. Okay, there's a lot of emotions coming up. It's around these things, and that can be your guidance. It doesn't have to be a written planner. Like I said, we each have our own star print that we came in when we were born, and that's unique to us. So our energies and different energy transits and aspects that happen affect different people differently. So the most important thing is you being present with it. So you sit with yourself and your compass. When you realize your compass is not, needs some calibrating, you ask yourself, what do you need? Then you ask yourself, how are you caring for yourself? You go to the center of your compass, your bow, right? The front of your ship is at the center of your compass, and that's your self-development. How are you doing spiritually? How are you caring for yourself mentally, emotionally, physically? And then you calibrate there first, because you have to make sure that you're caring and nourishing yourself. That is your ultimate thing. What is best for me is best for we. What's best for you is best for everybody. Remember that. Allow yourself to fill others from your overflow, not from a deficit. Okay? And make the adjustments that are necessary. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to make changes to what's on your compass. It doesn't have to be a fixed thing. Navigating eternity is very graceful. You have to be able to adapt. That's the most important thing. It's not about survival of the fittest. Remember, we're getting out of that colonized Eurocentric programming. It's about survival of those who can adapt, right? Because that's actually what was being expressed. But unfortunately, that system was used to validate the oppression that was simultaneously being inculcated with it, right? So recognize that you have to fill your own tank first, and gratitude is the fuel. So I'm going to take a moment to offer gratitude to everybody who is here with us and who has been here with us. I want to especially thank my sister Arlene and my sister Kai for being here, and all the other Tehuti Ma'at militia people who just came through to support. But especially you, who is here, who is working on your compass right now. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, I think it's so important for people to recognize the importance of every move that they make. One of the greatest lies that we're being told is that what we do does not matter. And it does matter. You matter. You choosing your healing, your well-being, yourself matters, especially in this context, because it's so spiritually rooted. It's not selfish in the sense where you're not honoring the collective. It's still, it's happy. It's the Aquarian energy. Right? Happy is about the self, the unique individual need and our collective responsibility, recognizing that we are the ocean in a drop, right? So if we want to change that ocean, we change the drop. And I just want to offer you gratitude for that, to fuel our ship, our Jed of navigating eternity. And I also want to allow for any questions that anyone may have. And let me see, because I don't have the slides that I wanted to have here to see how I can invite you. So let me just give an overview, the flow of how it all connects. You always evaluate the previous cycle. You check your map. We didn't go over that today, but we briefly touched on it. You calibrate your compass and you plan your route. That's your helm. That's the steering wheel of the ship, right? And always allow leeway, because sometimes a current comes, there's a storm, waves, wind. You can't control those things, right? So you have to give your ship leeway to navigate those things. What else is there? Let me see if there's anything else I should add here. I don't know why I don't have none of my slides with the brothers on them on here. All right. So I want to talk to you guys about the JED. We're about to start JED 11, which is, I'm so glad there's been, because before Navigating Eternity was even birthed, I was doing beta with certain groups to like inform the medicine. I wanted to make sure that it worked. And everybody who comes in always informs it. It's a living, breathing thing, right? Tehuti Ma'at is a cooperative. It's a grassroots cooperative. Fundamentally, that's how it functions. So everybody who's present is part of that cooperative and is informing what is being built and developed in there. So that's important to say. At this point, this medicine has been nourished by so many others. And our community agreements for the JED, if you choose to do our accountability community, is you show up. That's the most important thing. Show up as you are. Hopefully you show up having done your homework. Hopefully you showed up having actually applied the medicine in different regards. But you just show up as you are. Maybe you're not. And maybe that's what you need to see, right? So you're committing to a season. We do the commitment on a seasonal basis. So it's for 3 moons. So this is going to be for April, May, and June as the door opens for this season. 6 group sessions total. So it's every other strong. Every other Sunday, we meet for 90 minutes. So it's 2 times a moon, 2 times a month for 90 minutes, right? And all of this has actually been measured and based on science of all the different studies that have been done, and what's the optimal group size, what's the optimal amount of time to connect, to be constructive, right? And action oriented. So we're rooted in our collective values. If you are not familiar with Tehuti Ma'at at all, I do want to invite you to go to the About page on our website. It's tehutimaat.org. Let me put it on here for you. Where is it? So you would go to tehutimaat.org, and let me actually just put the link tree. So you could go to the link tree. So it's LINKTR. Let me put it into the chat. That might be helpful for y'all. So there's an about section on there. So you could click on it. It'll take you to tehutimat.org/about, which has the 11 pillars. Those are our community values and our revolutionary ideology. So 1 is Ma'at, complementary energy. 2 is Netter, nature. 3 is healing. 4 is the ancestors. 5 is Africa. 6 is sovereignty. 7 is unity. 8 is production. 9 is power. 10 is freedom. And 11 is revolution. And you can read about that on the website. But those are our community values. Becoming a member of the Tehuti Ma'at Militia, you're also gonna get our orientation guide that has like what our cultural code is and the ways that we choose to embody these principles and that we've agreed to. So you'll get all of that information to know about like the type of space that we're cultivating, how we expect you to show up for the JED with your camera on, all that good stuff, right? And you'll get the Navigating Eternity curriculum as we go through it. This season, what I'm going to be doing is giving a dose of medicine during each session, but you also get access to the LMS, the learning system, where you can go through the curriculum course by course, excuse me, module by module, and like lecture by lecture, each piece. And I'm also going to be providing a template for you to have your compasses and your essentially your digital version of the Pata planner, which is going to be a physical piece that comes out soon. So I want to go ahead and answer any questions that anyone might have. I'm also going to put the link tree, not the link tree, sorry, the Calendly, so that you, if you want to book your clarity call, if you want more information about joining, as I said, we're starting on April 13th. If you're interested in joining, you can do the clarity call. And I just want to make sure it's a good fit. We'll go over the investment and all the things. And yeah, that's the best way for us to proceed, to make sure, because also there might be a different fit that's best for you. So let me put that in the chat as well. Does anyone have any questions? Or Kai and Arlene, is there anything you want to share as we're closing out?
I would like to share for anyone who is watching, maybe now or in the future. I definitely would say book the clarity call. At this time, we all can feel that there is a massive shift that is happening. So if you are receiving the call, please do not allow fear or whatever perceived notions or things that may come up, because when it's time to really pour into ourselves and invest in ourselves, we tend to find all the reasons why we can't, right? So answer the call, your spirit's call, and yeah, book the clarity call to see if it aligns, and don't let money, these mundane things keep you from stepping into your power, fully walking in your power, being in your power, and taking up space. So that's the bit of advice that I have, because that was me, but it really just wasn't the time. I came in at the right time, but still keep in touch with the community, ask questions, don't be afraid. And yeah, this is how we show up for ourselves, and this is how we continue to do the work. So
Yeah, and anything is possible. Like really recognize that. Um, what you are seeking is seeking you. And you have to always do your part to make space for it. So anything else you want to add, Kai, before I
I have nothing to
begin
add.
closing
This
this
feels
out?
very complete.
Okay. I will share one testimonial because we hadn't had no brothers on. All right, I'm going to share a testimony from our brother, Omawali. And Omawali said, Navigating Eternity has made me a better planner. By using the system, I've been able to track and manage my activities in a much more organized way. As someone who operates in various roles throughout the year, I found this system to be invaluable in assisting me with keeping a record of all the activities I have on my plate. The virtual JED sessions offered the most value because we were actively learning as a community, and it really helped me to unlink myself from false time and plug into eternity. This was perhaps the most empowering aspect of the program, plugging into eternity. So
Yeah.
shout out to our brother Omawali for that. And remember this if you don't remember nothing else. I am accountable to myself before anybody else. All right. So if that's a declaration that you can carry into your life, I hope that it supports you in making self-aligned and self-honoring decisions in terms of how you use your energy. All right. Thank you everyone for being here. We love you and we hope to see you. I will be doing an encore, so you'll get an email if you registered. If you didn't register, then you're going to have to make sure that you do so that you can get the information, or just stay tuned depending on where you're tuning in from. Stay tuned for that. Book the clarity call. I can answer any questions that you have. Um, and yeah, I think that's all, folks. All right. I
Thank
love y'all. Thank you to shout
you.
out to everybody else who's still here with us live. Sister Regine. Have a beautiful, beautiful new year. All right. And what will be coming up soon for on Tehuti Ma'at's YouTube is the reading for the new year. So if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do tap into our YouTube. It's Tehuti Ma'at World on YouTube. All right. Power.
Blessings.